let's just give them 3 more minutes. And then we'll go ahead, if you don't mind.
We're live streaming and recording now.
Oh, there's
Stand
Michael.
by,
Yeah.
everybody.
Oh, great.
Michael.
Hello, Michael. How are you?
Sorry, Mayor, I suddenly realized this meeting needed a passcode. It just took me a minute to find it.
Sometimes it asks for that and sometimes it doesn't.
Okay, my fault. Today it did, and it just took me a second to get there.
No problem. Glad you're here. Welcome, everybody. And welcome to this revised regular council meeting, revised agenda for the regular council meeting of Tuesday, October the 12th, 2021. Any late items, Sophie? I didn't see any.
None that have come in since Friday, so no.
Okay, thank you. And the first point of order is the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have a problem? Anything on the agenda? Anybody like to add anything on the agenda? Not, we'll approve the agenda by consensus. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to public comments. And what do you have there, Sophie?
Yes, we have Owen Plowman.
Oh, welcome, Owen.
It's me again.
Glad you made it.
I feel like I just did this 2 weeks ago, and it was back in June when it was a very, very hot day, or right at the beginning of July when we went up to 40 something.
Yeah.
I have really brief comments. I know you have a lot to cover, and I don't want to keep you, but you're going to be dealing with the permissive tax exemption bylaw 493 tonight, and I'm here as the president of the Conservancy on behalf of the board and all the members to hopefully thank you in advance. There's a recommendation to approve. We really appreciate the work that Sheila McCutcheon has put into the report. Of course, if you're able to grant us the exemption, we will be able to put the funds to good use and continue to build trails and a viewing platform and so on, which is all planned. We've been waiting to get started on some activities because we've been doing assessments of the flora and fauna on the island. So I just wanted to say we really appreciate the assistance we're getting from you. If you're able to grant this exemption to us, we'll really appreciate it. And hopefully the slight burden that everybody else on the island will have to take up in terms of a little bit of overhead will be more than made up by the experience of going to the lands at Cape Roger Curtis and experiencing them as you guys did in June. So I'm not going to say any more. Thank you very much again for the opportunity to speak. I'm going to drop off here and I'll watch on YouTube so I don't take up your Zoom session.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Owen, and we'll see how things roll here. Take care. All right, is that it? I saw somebody beep in there. Sophie, I don't know if they wanted to say anything or not. It's John Reed.
Yes, so John Reed has just joined the meeting. I see he's connecting to audio. John, did you want to speak during public comments this evening?
Mic's off.
Yeah, it looks like he's muted himself, so maybe he's just observing.
All right, well, then we'll carry on. And we'll get into the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything in the consent agenda that they would like a little bit of clarification on? Anybody want anything pulled out of the consent agenda? I'm not seeing any hands there. And if that is the case, that council will approve the items as outlined in the October 12th, 2021 consent agenda by consensus. Thank you. We're going to move on to delegations, which we have none. Sophie, right?
No delegations this evening.
Thank you. And the business arising from minutes, we have none there. So we're going to move right to bylaws. And bylaws 7.1 is 2020 to 2023 of the permissive tax exemption bylaw number 493 2019, amendment bylaw number 553 2021. Sheila McCutcheon, Chief Financial Officer. And I'll pass it right on over to you, Sheila. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So the purpose of my report tonight is for Council to consider approving the addition of 4 properties for the remaining years of the bylaw number 493 from 2019. So the remaining years would be 2022 and 2023. And also to provide a draft permissive tax exemption bylaw amendment for your first 3 readings. So the community charter grants a statutory exemption to certain properties automatically, which is administered by BC Assessment. However, permissive tax exemptions are not granted automatically, but they must be approved for a specified period by council through a bylaw. And related to 2021, staff received two applications from 2 organizations. This included Bowen Island Conservancy and Island Pacific School. Bowen Island Conservancy had 3 properties and Island Pacific 1 property. Also during the year in 2021, the Island Pacific School acquired the property that the school is actually located on. Was previously owned by Smooth Stones Foundation. And so because they had acquired the property and the property is now in the registered in the name of the Island Pacific School, they qualify for a statutory exemption now and no longer require that permissive exemption approval from the Bowen Island municipality. So as they no longer require a permissive tax exemption from Bowen Island, I've reflected this change in the amended Schedule A. So there, that property has been, that roll number has been removed. That's roll number 10113. The attached Schedule A reflects the additional properties for the Bowen Island Conservancy and the Island Pacific School. They had purchased an additional piece of land last year, and they're asking for a permissive tax exemption on that property because it has no buildings and it's not being used for direct purposes with the actual school itself. It doesn't qualify for a statutory amendment from exemption, from BC Assessment. So under financial considerations, the proposed 2020 to 2023 permissive tax exemption bylaw amendment results in a total tax subsidy of approximately $69,000 to all organizations listed on the Schedule A. And based on 2021 assessed values, this is the equivalent of about 1.13% of the previous year's property tax revenue. And the permissive tax exemption policy requires that it's be capped at 1.5% of the previous year's property tax revenue. So we're well within that 1.5% cap. Other than our comment this evening from Owen Plowman, we've received no public comments. The permissive tax exemptions, the additional properties for 2021's applications were advertised in the September 30th and October 7th editions of the Undercurrent and posted on the municipal website. And we've not received any comments to date. So in conclusion, staff is recommending that council approve the additional applications for the remaining 2 years, 2022 and 2023 of the current permissive tax exemption bylaw. And we are recommending that the applicants continue to confirm their eligibility each year by way of a letter to myself. So basically, if we just like council to provide the 2023 permissive tax exemption bylaw number 493, 2019, amendment bylaw number 553, 2021, its first 3 readings.
All right, thank you very much, Sheila. And I've got Sue Ellen first and then Allison.
Thank you. I just have a quick question. This all looks good to me, but my question relates to the bottom of Schedule A, the new Schedule A, Island Pacific School. The address is just Carter Road, and I'm wondering if there's a property number on Carter Road, or which property is it?
Yeah, well, we actually have the legal description, which and the PID. There was actually no civic address other than Carter Road with BC assessment and with the land title.
Okay,
Yeah.
All right, Allison?
I can answer the question as to which property it is. When you're driving up the driveway to go to Belterra, and there's the entrance to the parking lot for IPS, there's a piece of property just right there. So it's that piece of property.
Okay.
So it's on your left as you're driving up to Belterra and just past the driveway entrance. I was going to make the motion, but if Maureen's got a question.
Yeah, let's go to Maureen first, then I'll come back to you, Allison. Thank you. Maureen, welcome.
Thank you, and apologies for being late. I'm
No worries.
fighting a losing battle with my computer. 2 points, Sheila. The end of October deadline that you mentioned for this to be approved, are there similar, and this is a general interest question, are there similar deadlines for receiving tax exemptions from other taxation authorities?
I'm just familiar with the municipal permissive tax exemption. It's October 31st that the bylaw has to be submitted. I'm not aware of what the Metro Vancouver's deadlines would be, but for all municipalities, the deadline is October 31st. Outside of that, sorry, I don't know what other, I'm not aware of any other exemptions that other communities other agencies or other levels of government grant, other than a statutory, unless BC assessment has granted a statutory exemption.
Okay, thank you. And then the second question that I had, unless Liam, if you want to jump in at this point.
Oh, I was just going to ask if there was any clarification that you might provide on what orders of government you might be thinking about, because I mean, for Bowen, it's only the local governments that charge property tax and on behalf of other taxing authorities.
Yeah, it was more of a context question, and in looking at that deadline, I thought I wondered if there were sort of a domino effect in terms of meeting other deadlines. So it's not a pressing question. It's not to point here, but might be interesting. The second point is just a fix. The bylaw states that this is for a second, third reading on October the 15th, and it's October the 12th. So the bylaw needs to be amended to correct the date. Does that make sense?
oh yeah. Well, it does to me. I can see it there.
Yeah, it says on the 15th. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, so just a fix. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Oh, no, it
I
doesn't.
see, yeah.
Sorry, that's the old bylaw. And the new one just says on blank day of blank blank. Okay.
Well, as long as it says October 12th, I'm happy.
Oh,
we
that
will
is
have
the
to
old.
done it.
That is the
Yes.
old one. Yeah, we have. Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't completed that yet. That will happen
That
for tonight's meeting.
this is so. Yeah, that's from 2019. We're right on schedule.
Perfect, yeah.
3 years
Yeah.
later.
Well,
So I
Okay,
make the
Allison,
motion
you had
now,
a comment on that, and you were going to read the recommendation.
So I will move that bylaw number 553, 2021, cited as Bowen Island Municipality 2020-2023, permissive tax exemption bylaw number 493, 2019, amendment bylaw number 553, 2021, be read a first, second, and third time.
Second.
Okay, Sue Ellen for the second, and any further discussion? Okay, I'll ask a question. All in favor? Aye.
Hi.
And I
Thank you
just
very
sort of
much.
in clarification to Maureen's question,
Yes,
when we grant this permissive tax exemption, going back into the community charter, the school tax is exempted, and the GVRD and Alms Trust and a few others. It's not that they have to go down the domino of, but they don't get out of paying parcel taxes if there's parcel tax.
Okay. Thank you, Allison.
Okay, 7.2 is, and thank you, Sheila. 7.2 is the land use bylaw number 57, 2002, amendment bylaw number 530, 2020, 992 Dorman Road, which is unit 203, the Happy Isle Cannabis. Daniel Martin, Manager of Planning and Development. Over to you, Daniel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just have a very short presentation that I will walk you through here. Okay. So as the Mayor said, we're here for consideration for bylaw number 530. So this is the bylaw that would amend the current prohibition on retail cannabis licenses to permit it in a retail zone if it's recommended by council in terms of the referral from the province. So we held a public hearing for this bylaw September 13th. And through the end of the public hearing, we received a total of 4 written comments on the proposed bylaw. So 3 from members of the public supporting the proposed bylaw and 1 from the applicant with comments on the proposed policy. So as you'll see in the report, staff are recommending that the bylaw be given 3rd reading and adopted tonight. And at the same time as we've advanced the bylaw, we've advanced a policy that would guide council's decision-making in any future referrals for retail cannabis licenses, and also guide staff with how to process referrals and guide applicants as they're preparing potential applications. So based on the council discussion at the July 12th meeting and then comments received, staff have some sort of minor comments or minor amendments to that policy, which as well as is before you tonight. So we inserted clarity that a response would be provided to the province for all referrals. We would include a consideration for proximity to liquor retails, as well as a location criteria as identified by council, which is something we talked about at the July meeting, as having some sort of catch-all for council if something else comes up that we hadn't thought about when we did the policy, but that would be a factor in council's decision-making. When we talked at that July meeting about the desire for storefront visibility and sort of translating that to mean the desire is that, you know, the storefront would front onto the main street, that it would be visible, it would be clear. So we've amended that language to make it more clear. And finally, based on the letter from the applicant about concerns about, you know, what's the future consumer demand for this type of business, and should council be considering that so that there's not a sort of an overabundance. And so what staff have included, what I've included is language about anticipating consumer demand for an additional retail cannabis license. So that would give council the ability to say, okay, I think this is all that, you know, that our island needs. We've reached sort of saturation point, but I haven't put in a number, so it would be a consideration for council to consider if we receive additional licenses. So with all that, staff recommend that bylaw number 530 be read a 3rd time and then be considered and adopted, and council adopt the cannabis license referral policy.
All right. We'll start with, thank you, Daniel. We'll start with Sue Ellen.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just looking on the council under 5A. There's a blank beside number 7 in the copy that I've got in front of me. I'm wondering, it's under parks, public recreation and community centers, 5, 6 parks, 7 has a blank.
Yeah, I think that's just a formatting issue that came up.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, all right with that? Okay.
6 and 7, no 8, and 8 becomes 7.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else have any comments? Michael, you seem to have a hand sort of half up in your screen there. Is that right or not? It's funny because it's at the bottom of your screen. Oh, wait a minute, just moved on to Liam and David there. So I don't know what that is. It might be on Sophie's screen.
Maybe it's a cursor or something.
Well, it's one of the little hand, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, Maureen, over to you. Sorry, Sue Ellen, go ahead.
Oh, I was just wondering, I didn't catch what was going to happen. Are you just going to renumber them?
I'll just renumber. I'll remove 7.
Okay, so we'll
and
just say
renumber.
as amended?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and Maureen.
Yeah, point C, 5C also just needs an editorial fix. There are too many additionals going on in there.
Thanks, Maureen. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also wonder if Michael could talk a bit, because he spoke to this in the, I think it was in CADC. He spoke about the importance of the visibility of the storefront from the main street front. Michael, could you?
Yeah, the visibility of storefronts is that the business, although it may be behind opaque glass, is front and foremost, the way you walk in and out of the store. This was when in our discussions, Maureen, it was really to focus on that the entrance in and out should be visible, not down a corridor, round a bend, up a set of ladders, through a door with a small latchway, etc. It was front and center, and that was a whole idea. That was a whole idea. The obvious, and I think that speaks to itself, that there's not meant to be anything secretive or hidden about the entrance into this type of business.
It's not down an alleyway or anything. Yeah,
that's it. Yes, avoiding alleyways and you know, a certain sort of suggestive furtiveness of any type. This is where everyone can see it, front and center.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Anybody else? Maureen, back to you.
Yeah. The checking in is 100 meters. And I wondered, question for Daniel, I wondered if there was any merit in expanding the 100 meters more broadly.
Yeah, I mean, I've done that because that was the same as our procedure bylaw for variance permits and temporary use permits, and thinking, you know, with similar, and I guess public hearings. So a similar type process is, you know, a rezoning or a temporary use permit or a variance permit. I would imagine that it would be within council's, you know, authority, like you adopt the policy in one stage if you felt like this warranted further, like a wider distribution of a referral, you could do that at that time. Or, I mean, it can be larger in the policy as well. I was trying to match our procedure bylaw for other development applications.
Can you remind me, if you remember, how broadly did we consult for the happy hour? Was it 100 meters or was it larger?
We did 100 meters. We did it in concert with the temporary use permit. So we advertised for both at the same time. We advertised in the paper as well, and we would do that again.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Allison, and then Sue Bex.
I guess I'm just back to Michael's comment about visibility, and it was certainly something that the Community Economic Development Committee was agreeing on. Do we need to make it clear that it must be visible? I mean, the visibility could imply either way, hidden or.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Maureen's the English major here.
Smith, yeah.
The good visibility of the storefront from the main street front, or
Sensible visibility or something?
Desired.
Desired, there you go. How's that, Allison?
yeah, the desired visibility of the storefront, or visibility of the storefront from the main street front is desired or desirable? Which way?
Is desirability.
Desired.
I think the desired visibility, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go to Sue.
Then you need
So
an
is that
is,
agreed that we'll insert the word desired in there then?
Yeah,
and then you need an is after.
We need what?
The visibility of the storefront is from the main street front,
Desired visibility?
or the desired visibility of the storefront.
Is, you want an is between storefront and from?
That's what I thought I was hearing from Councillor Kale.
Yeah.
That's the direction.
Does that make sense to everybody?
no,
Sue Ellen's got her hand up.
yeah, sure, go ahead, Sue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just wondering about the within 100 meters. And it seems to me we might want to make it within a minimum of 100 meters. because I think that better matches some of our other referrals. And then it also allows us to let a landowner know who might be just outside of it if we, or council wish to in the future. Sometimes landowners don't live on the island and might not see it in the news kind of thing. But if they're, for example, a church camp or something, they might want to have the notice to comment, and we might want to give it to it. So I'm wondering, could we say under 4B within a minimum of 100 meters?
I'd be okay with that. I don't want to designate anything more than 100 meters. 100 meters is 330 yards in every direction. And I think we open up ourselves for a lot of abuse has been shown in the past. Anyway, that's my personal opinion. What does everybody else think?
So we didn't finish the other section. I thought
No.
someone was wanting to comment on the visibility. So I think whatever the wording is has to be the same in all our things. So if our procedure bylaw says within 100 meters, or development approvals bylaw says within 100 meters, if our public hearing processes say within 100 meters, that should be the same, because within 100 meters means within 100 meters.
Yeah.
So if you're within the 100 meters, then that's your minimum. And as Daniel says, we can always add a second condition at a time we're considering something to make it more than 100 meters, to advertise for properties within 100 to 500 meters or something, for example.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, he mentioned that before. We're
Did
not
you say
stuck
that,
with.
Daniel?
So our development procedure bylaw has the same language about within 100 meters. And in the past, for some variance permits or temporary use permits, council has expanded that notice.
So
It
we
can
would
do that
be,
at the meeting when it's introduced. So you'd still have the power to expand if necessary.
thank you. That's
yeah.
fine then. I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Suella. So on that one, I think the number one is the desired visibility of the storefront from the main street frontage, maybe? Is that?
Sure.
Hey, Allison, can't hear you there. Allison?
Yeah, so
You okay
Liam
with
was
that?
suggesting it should say the desired visibility of the storefront is from the main street. So maybe it has to say the desired visibility for the storefront is from the main street.
Well,
Does that make sense for you?
No, just stick in desired and keep it as a fragment. Sorry, this is getting pedantic. I think we all know where we want to go with this, so.
Well, we do, but will everybody 5 years from now?
Yeah, well, I think desired visibility gets the point across.
So the desired visibility of the storefront from the main street front.
Yes, that's something council will consider. That makes sense. to
Or
me.
from the main street, don't even put front.
Main Street.
How does that sound?
Word front.
Good.
Okay, and we're gonna be up to 100 meters?
It's fine.
Okay, good. So sorry, I just had to find it here. So the recommendation, any further discussion? I still got a hand at Allison and Sue Ellen.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Didn't put it down.
Okay, no worries. The recommendation is the bylaw number 530, 2020, cited as Bowen Island. Land use bylaw number 57, 2002, amendment bylaw number 530, 2020 be read a third time. And then bylaw number 530, 2020, cited as Bowen Island land use bylaw number 57, 2002, amendment bylaw number 530, 2020 be considered and adopted. And the council adopt policy number 12-04, cannabis licensing referral policy as amended.
Second.
All right, thank you. And any further discussion? I just gonna add one little comment there, is that when the application comes to, and I wasn't aware of this, but when it does come to the municipality for referral, the site for the shop or the, whatever you want to call it, is already been chosen, which is interesting. But you could say that's not in a good place. We don't like that. but the site has been chosen, so they don't get a chance, but they can look at this application and see that that's what we want when it comes to us. But it's funny because I didn't realize that they actually have to have a lease on the premises before the referral comes to the municipality. And they're also vetted before that. Okay, so any further discussion? I'll ask a question. All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, terrific. Thank you. And we're going to move on to staff reports. And it's a rezoning application, RZ 03-2020, Area 1 is CD 14. Ian Stewart and Allard O'Cloughlin, can never say that. Daniel Martin, Manager of Planning and Development. Away you go again, Daniel. Thank you.
Thank you. I will start my screen share here.
Okay.
Okay, so I have before you to introduce a rezoning application for Area 1 of CD 18, which is the Arbutus Ridge Comprehensive Development Zone. So here it's located on the west side of Bowen Island and was created in a rezoning in, I believe, 2009, if my memory serves. So there's the ortho photo showing it. You can see some of the recent subdivisions have taken place within this zone or are proposed within this zone. So it's up the new Joan Audrey Lane off of Windjammer. So the Area 1 of CD 18 permits detached dwellings, permits open space and public trails, and then it's accessory to principal uses, and it allows domestic agriculture. The zone permits up to 38 dwellings within the zone. But crucially for this application, the zone does not permit accessory residential use, which is how we regulate secondary suites, both attached and detached. So the zone doesn't permit secondary suites of any kind. Just for sort of reference, one of the things I looked at is, are there other zones on Bowen Island that don't permit secondary suites? So there are a number that don't permit accessory residential use, most of which are located in Snug Cove, and most of which are for multifamily housing. So sort of the other example I could find is some areas in the Cowan Point CD zone around the golf course don't permit secondary suites. The Hood Point Comprehensive Zone, one of the areas, the central area of Hood Point, doesn't permit them. Otherwise, they're primarily in Snug Cove. So Bowen Court and Snug Cove House, the Bowen Pub zoning, Artisan Square, Kate's Hill, the townhouses that are below the municipality. Yeah. As part of this rezoning application, I'll bring you the Arbutus Ridge is a comprehensive development area within the official community plan. So it has language that describes what the development will look like. So it talks about being a planned community, clusters of detached residential dwellings interspersed by open space, trails, and natural areas. And there's a specific policy that relates to this area as well. So again, it talks about it'll be clustered development, retaining natural vegetation. It'll be planned and integrated with a trail network. It says the designation provides for a maximum of 38 detached residential dwellings in the residential clusters, in addition to the cottage residential development. So as part of the application, we did review these policies to confirm that any change to allow accessory residential use would be compatible with the official community plan policies. And so as I've touched on in brief, the proposed development is to permit this accessory residential use throughout Area 1. So in all 38 permitted dwellings would be permitted a secondary suite. Area 1 currently has active subdivisions for the majority of the lots are either newly created through subdivision or are under active subdivision applications. And so of the 38 lots, we estimate that 15 of them would be large enough for detached secondary suites, and the rest would be permitted attached secondary suites. As mentioned in the report, so staff have recommended conditions to be addressed or confirmed through the rezoning process. So there's a number of elements that get considered at time of subdivision that were considered at time of subdivision for essentially a single house on each one, a single dwelling. And so looking at what would need to be just reconsidered or reconfirmed if we're instead allowing that additional dwelling unit on each lot. So primarily about water supply. So the way that the development or the area is broken down is that 4 of the lots are 4 of the dwellings that would be provided on a lot off Malcolm Creek Road under subdivision that's not part of the King Edward Bay water system, but are serviced by private wells, while the remaining 34 lots are within the King Edward Bay water system. So for those 34 lots, a condition would be the developer to demonstrate there's adequate capacity for water for all those proposed accessory residential uses. And the other notes are just in the report, and they're things that we would just look to confirm through the rezoning process. So things like hydrant availability or the availability of the proposed septic areas that are set out in the subdivision and the stormwater management plan as well. So again, sort of that anticipating that there's greater development within those lots, that those considerations are taken into account. But at this point, we're coming to council for initial discussion of the application and to seek referrals to the Advisory Planning Commission, the Environment and Climate Action Advisory Committee, and the King Edward Bay Water System for that initial discussion to come back to council with a bylaw for the actual readings for the rezoning application. So I'll stop sharing there and take any questions you have.
Thanks, Daniel. Okay, Allison, go ahead.
I was just looking through the original proposal. Daniel, when we did the detached secondary suites, did we change, because there was no discussion that I could see in my files for the original proposal of not allowing secondary suites. And I have a recollection that secondary suites there was sort of one of those permitted everywhere on the island type bylaws and general regulations that allowed secondary suites. But when we did the detached secondary suites, we changed that and created that accessory dwelling zoning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the detached secondary suites just took everywhere that was allowed secondary suite and instead allowed accessory residential use. So it didn't expand it anywhere, but it just allowed the option to be detached where we allowed attached already.
So, but back when this subdivision original rezoning application was done, was the land use bylaw such that they could have had secondary suites in all those houses?
When this rezoning was done, the secondary suite bylaw was already adopted.
Yeah.
And so when this was proposed, we already allowed secondary suites elsewhere on the island.
By doing this, they're fitting with what the change we made to the land use bylaw and being allowed to have a detached secondary suite.
Yeah.
Okay.
Finished, Allison?
Yeah.
Maureen, please.
Thank you. A couple of questions, Daniel. The first one is, and this may have been answered, but why was there no accessory residential use permitted there to begin with? Was it just that it predated our introduction of the detached secondary suite bylaw?
It didn't predate the adoption of our secondary suite bylaw.
For the attached secondary suite.
For the attached.
Mm-hmm.
So, I did review all the council reports of the application and the application file as best as I could piece it together, and I couldn't see a definitive answer. It was just sort of assumed from the start that it wouldn't be included, that there would just be the 38 houses and they would not be secondary suites.
Right.
So I don't know more history than that. It may, somebody may come forward at some point and say, okay, this is the history of it, but I couldn't determine it.
Okay, so the upshot of this is that we could get 38 suites, attached or detached, on these properties. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And the comments from Patrick suggest that the water systems are not going to be an issue.
So the comments from Patrick, one is referral to the water advisory committee, right. And two is that sorry, the staff report is the director of engineering is not concerned about what future water supply for those 4 lots off Malcolm Creek that are serviced by their wells, but for the remaining ones, you would want to see the developer demonstrate there's adequate capacity for the water for those 34 additional suites.
Okay, and then my second to last question is, would it be possible to put some sort of affordability restriction on 38 newly created attached or detached secondary suites?
It would be possible for council to do that as a requirement. I would have to speak to the applicants, they wanted to proceed under that basis, but it is something that we could pursue if that's council's direction.
Okay. And then my final question is, has there been any update from the applicant regarding the cottage residential development? Is that in progress?
I don't have an update, but I can seek one before I return to council.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen. Sue Ellen?
Thank you. I had the same question about the cottage residential. I wasn't on council back in the day, but it seems to me that cottage residential area focusing with seniors, people with disabilities, was a feature that allowed more density. I might be wrong, but I'd be interested in an update on that cottage residential piece. And I was interested in the trail side of things. If we applied our active living guidelines, then I could certainly see those 4 lots on 1676 Malkin. People could just walk down to Bowen Bay Beach or wherever. It wouldn't be a matter of more parking at the beach. I was looking down further in the manager's comments about ecological, environmental, and hearing about and of course the wells, they'd be on their own wells. But thinking about the trails, active living, walking down to the shore so that cars aren't needed to drive up and down the hill and park at beaches. I'm wondering if you could also refer it to, we would choose to refer it to the Parks, Trails and Greenways Advisory Committee, because they deal with trails and with beaches, and they make recommendations about that. So I would ask Parks, Trails and Greenways Advisory Committee to be added to the list, or had you considered that?
I hadn't considered it, in part because it's changes to sort of existing lots and not necessarily changes to the trails and parks, but if council wants to see it, I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Present to that committee.
Well, my interest in doing that is partly because when Parks, Trails and Greenways Advisory Committee can get involved early on, sometimes it helps with the bigger decisions. And so that's my suggestion. And partly because there's so much focus in trails in how people move around in the approved rezoning at the time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sue Ellen. David?
Just a couple of comments. Thank you, Gary. A couple of comments, just following up on the trails. The area already has excellent trails. That was part of the original design. And Mr. Stewart has actually just built a phenomenal trail to link some of the lots that are higher up to come right down to the area above Bowen Bay Beach. But I was just going to recommend that it also be referred to the Housing Committee. Maureen made a point about, should there be something about affordability in this? Well, the Housing Committee might have something to say about this whole thing. So that I'm in general support of this, but that was my one recommendation. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, David. Just before I go back to Allison here, just a few comments. So there was actually, it started off at 38 lots, was it? Daniel, or 37?
It's 38 lots in that area one.
Okay, but 4 of them are under a separate, they're going to be under a separate rezoning from Ian Stewart.
So this rezoning covers the whole area, but the area itself consists of lots that are owned, or one lot owned by Ian Stewart that they've essentially allocated 4 of those dwelling units to, and the remaining 34 are part of the King River Bay development.
Okay. So out of that 34, the 11 of the lots are large enough for detached secondaries.
Yeah.
So there's only 11 lots on the 34, but there could be attached secondaries and those. Yeah. My biggest concern is water, obviously, and that's going to be looked at. As far as the Housing Committee, I don't know if we can start regulating if those they're not necessarily going to be rental units. If they, go in, they could be just in-law suites or whatever. So it's pretty hard to, anyway, that's something we can look into, I guess. Parks, trails and greenways. Yeah, I had a couple other things, but it looks like they've been taken care of. So that's pretty much it. We do need housing. There's no question about that. I was wondering why it didn't happen at the time originally, which was question was answered. So because it's always a little suspect when it's kind of like an upzoning for these people, actually. I'm going to go to Michael first and then back to Allison's. Yeah.
Yeah, we're being asked to refer this, and I'm totally comfortable that we should. It actually is a very significant change to the original application made. So I'd like to hold fire on my thoughts on that one. Can it just be referred to the various committees mentioned? And then I'll be very curious to see their comments. I am struck by the fact that here was an original application made, and this is a significant change to the nature of the application. But fair enough, I also see the advantages as well. So I suggest that we simply refer this and to the other committees mentioned, Mayor, and we could perhaps move on. And I think it's a good thing to refer, and I look forward to receiving the comments in due course.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Allison?
Well, I just went back through the zoning bylaw and corrected my memory. So when we did the first amendment to create secondary suites, we specifically allowed them in certain specific zones. So a permitted accessory use was added to SR1, SR2, R1, and so forth. So like Michael, I'm a little curious as to why when they did the original rezoning application, they didn't ask for residential secondary suites as an accessory residential use be included in the bylaw.
Attached ones, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a question I'd kind of like to have answered. And then I'm just trying to understand there's the total number of, there's 38 lots, and on page 3 of the report, there's 3 subdivisions listed. But it doesn't say how many lots in subdivision 06-2017. Is it just 2 lots? I mean, that all adds to 20 lots, and there's 38.
No, Allison, there were more. It's just that 2 of those are large enough. You're right. I don't have that off the top of my head.
Yeah, okay. It's just, 20 of the 34 lots are registered or at the PLR stage, and 11 would be large. Of those 20 would be large enough. So there's still 18
Correct.
lots to be created. Okay, and I guess my other question in researching the water situation is the 4 wells, the individual wells that would be drilled, or the lots that would be serviced by individual wells. I think we need to understand the impact of those wells on the whole west side aquifer. Not just, because
That's a
I
good
think
point.
that was part of that aquifer study, and I don't know whether they looked at that or not, but if you've got 4 more wells, they could be drawing down on that. They need to be considered in the what impact they're having on the water supply.
Any comment on that, Daniel?
Not specifically. I know that the aquifer study had considered like the impact of the Malkin Creek subdivision at that point, and I had flagged it for our director of engineering, but we can raise it again.
Well, I just need to check that. So we need to just check that referral and check that it, give the trail to the people in the area, because they're going to be wondering. So they need to be able to track through.
Liam's very,
Just on the waterfront, and that's I think why the director of engineering wanted to still require the applicant to confirm the viability of the water availability. So that's part of the referral.
okay, thank you. Okay, back to Sue Ellen, and then Maureen.
Thank you, and thanks for bringing up about the trails that are already constructed. And I know that the West Side Children's Park is down there, but I don't see any of these on BOMAP, and I've never heard of them coming into being dedicated? Maybe they're designated now. How does that work? And are they open to the public at present? Or where do I find a map of them?
Sure. I mean, so the trails for the active subdivisions are being constructed as condition of those subdivisions. So there's physically, I believe the trail is largely completed now from Malkin Creek up, but would become a municipal trail at time of the subdivision being completed. And that's the point where it's mapped and comes up on BOMAP and is, you know, legally open for the public.
Okay, this is partly why I'm interested in Parks, Trails and Greenways Advisory Committee being involved, just because I can't see, I don't have any information about the trails. Thank you.
Sure, we'll get them in there for sure. Maureen?
Yeah, it's just to address a comment that was made in passing regarding why didn't the developer include secondary suites at the time of the rezoning application. At the time of this rezoning application, detached secondary suites were some, 5 years away in terms of being permitted on the island. So I would imagine it wasn't a hill they wanted to die on, and they wanted to get their rezoning through for the lots that they were proposing. And you know, the approval of detached secondary suites.
Allison, yeah.
Sorry?
Secondary suites I was asking about. Secondary suites were permitted as an accessory use in residential.
Yeah, I'm speaking specifically about the comment regarding detached secondary suites.
Oh, okay. Well, I was asking about secondary suites, why they didn't put that in the first place.
Yeah, I think there's quite a bit of different consumption when you're talking about a detached secondary suite and, you know, which 1,200 square foot house and attached secondary suite, which is just a couple more people. Any further comments on this? I'll read the recommendation, which is council refer application RZ 03-2020 to the Advisory Planning Commission, the Environment and Climate Action Advisory Committee, the King Edward Bay Water System Local Advisory Committee, and the Parks, Trails and Greenways Committee, and the Housing Committee. Do we still want it to go there? Okay, thank you. And that council directs staff to prepare a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw to allow for the rezoning application RZ 03-2020 outlined at its October 12th, 2021 regular council meeting. Do we want to do that, or do we just want to wait for the comments to come back?
Don't we normally wait for the comment?
Daniel?
I've done this a few times, which means essentially I would come back with comments and a bylaw for consideration of first reading. On larger applications, I've done it with just the first step where I come back from comments and then seek direction for a bylaw. This is essentially to save, you know, one council meeting report, and so it depends on council's comfort. If council wants to hear comments, then by all means just make the first one, and then we know I'll bring back comments, and then I'll go away again to do a bylaw. So
I personally would prefer that. How's everybody else on that?
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, Michael, Allison. So we got a majority there. So let's split those then, if you're happy, and we'll just take that second part out of there.
Okay, so I'll second that then, Gary.
Okay, thank you, David. And any further discussion on this?
We're just doing the first one, right?
Yes.
We're just doing the first one, yeah.
Seems
And
to me, the Environment, Climate Action, the King Edward Bay Water System, and the Housing Committee are for comment, as the trails were already figured out and done in the original rezoning. And all we're doing is allowing or not allowing detached secondary suites. It seems to me the referral for the Trails Committee should be for information, not for comment.
for information.
Well, I think we should ask them for recommendations if they've got any. Maybe they won't have any. But my point was they're also to do with beaches and with, you know, they look at active living guidelines and just general mobility and trails. This also connects to Mount Gardner.
To this point, they've already been designated here, so I don't think anything's going to change. But to Sue Ellen's point, she wants to make sure, and she wants to know about the dedication and when the trails will be dedicated.
That's why I said for information.
Well, they're basically all for information. Eh?
I
Yeah.
thought we were asking for comments from the other three.
Well, comments and information, yeah. Maureen?
I don't think there's any harm in sending it to Parks, Trails and Greenways for their feedback. It sounds as though this may have fallen off of people's radar if they don't live in that area and are walk the trails. There may be some recommendations Parks, Trails and Greenways could make about raising the profile. So
yeah.
No harm.
No, I agree, Maureen. So that it stands as I read it. And if there's no further discussion, I'll ask a question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Nobody. Great, that's good. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you.
On to correspondence. Jerry Dubrovny, Chief Administration Officer of the Metro Vancouver, expression of interest. I'm going to put this over to Liam. Just it's kind of a funny one, and we had a short discussion about it. But Liam, do you want to sort of see if there's anything to be done about that?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mayor. This is I believe this is the second call from Metro Vancouver, so really just wanted to bring it to attention to council here tonight to just seek direction from council to further engage with Birch and or Snug Cove House to see if there's any alignment or opportunities that we can explore perhaps for another time, another go around, so to speak. And or if there may be of interest too at engaging with Metro on this type of a request in association with the request of expression of interest that the municipality put out for its area. I can't remember the area number, but within lot 3.
Yeah.
And so, so really it's
lot one.
Lot 1.
Lot 1, yeah.
Sorry, lot 1.
Area 3 and
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I always get the sequencing mixed up. So really it's bringing it forward to your attention, and then also, asking, just clarifying that this would be something worth bringing forward to Birch and perhaps Snug Cove House, as well as going back to Metro and exploring this in relation to our EOI.
All right, any comments? I can start with David this time.
Thank you, Gary. And yes, Liam, Maureen and I worked with Birch on this, and we actually sat down, this was before COVID, we sat down in a room with Metro staff and talked about how this might all work. I think we had Robin on the phone, I can't remember. But Birch applied, they looked into it, and the comments we received were very favorable, but it was probably a bit too small, and well, never mind, probably it was a bit too small, and of course construction costs are high on Bowen, so it didn't succeed. Although the comments that I received personally was that it was seen very favorably. We should also notice that there are no Metro Vancouver housing sites past the middle of North Van, west of the middle of North Van, and regional parity is one of the factors that they have in their criteria. I was also thinking about the EOI. It doesn't fit as well as the Birch as lot 3 does, because it's not so close to, it's not close to transit. I mean, it's walkable to the Cove if you're athletic, but not if you're not at all athletic. So and of course there's quite a lot more work. The other one was a prepared plan. It was really quite good. I'd really like it if Robin, I think we did mention this to Robin, so she's aware of it, but I would be happy to do so again. but I guess, you know, tried once and doesn't want to put all the effort into it a second time. So those are my comments. So I don't really have any great recommendations. I do feel the UI would be interesting, but it would be a bit more of a stretch than you know, right down in Snug Cove. So thanks. Those are my comments. I might have more to say if other people say something. I might have more thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Maureen?
You're muted.
I think it definitely is worth pursuing, if for no other reason than to keep Bowen Island on the Metro Vancouver Housing Corporation's radar. I've already brought this up with Robin at the last Housing Advisory Committee meeting. I'm not sure what her appetite is for pursuing it, but I definitely think it is worth further conversation. I think the regional equity point that David brought up is very important and could work to our favor. And as far as this council meeting is concerned, a general resolution to pursue this would be helpful. And then we've got our housing committee of the whole on Wednesday, and some further direction might come out of that. But I don't think we should let this die. I think if we let it die, it shows we're dead. And just even responding in some fashion is worthwhile.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good point, Maureen. Allison?
Well, I was reading this as if we provided the land and expedited approvals and so forth, that Metro Vancouver Housing would run the whole project, build the housing and everything. So we could have two projects, one being the Birch project, one being the Metro Vancouver Housing project. So I think we should definitely pursue it. And I don't think we necessarily need to, it's complementary to the Birch project, and we could have two rather than, having Birch be involved in two projects. They can run one and Metro Vancouver Housing can run the other.
Yeah, but that is a point of clarification, Liam. It looked to me when I read it too that they were looking for no cost in the land.
Yeah,
They do say that they're looking for like not necessarily no cost, but
No.
a nominal rate.
Yeah.
And
Well, yeah.
and so, but I do think that Councillor Morris is correct that it could be that it's an entirely Metro project,
Yeah.
rather than supporting the Birch one. So I'd be happy to explore both.
Perfect. Thank you. Sue Ellen?
Similar to what other people have said, I think we should definitely express our interest. And as a municipality, we've put our community land in there, and we need affordable housing, and we need to make those points that we're already walking down this path, and we would like our partners to join with us. Thank you.
Okay, that's a good point. I agree. I guess it was kind of funny the way it was put out, but I would certainly take the advice from the rest of council and Liam and David. If you who wants to go forward, especially to Birch? Maureen?
Oh, I'm happy to reach out to Birch on this as well. And as part of the pre-screening criteria as requested by Metro, they would like a clear resolution from council stating support for exploration of a partnership. So it's we're not committing to a full project, but rather
I move that council can request staff to continue the exploration of a development by Metro Vancouver Housing of a housing development on Bowen Island on our community land.
Could it say with Metro Vancouver? Because they do use the word partnership rather than.
Sophie, type out what I said. Sophie?
I went back.
All right, sorry about that. I'm just on my laptop, so I'm switching quickly between screens. So I have that council received the correspondence from Jerry Dobrovolny, Chief Administrative Officer, Vancouver, Metro Vancouver, and direct staff to continue exploration of development by Metro Vancouver Housing Corporation on Bona.
What it says in their pre-screening criteria is explore a partnership opportunity with Metro Vancouver Housing for affordable rental housing.
Okay, let's
I'm
use
just
that
looking,
one.
I'm at the bottom of one of
Those
these
are
pages,
good
at the
words,
bottom of the first page of the letter.
To explore,
A
direct
partnership
staff to explore partnership opportunity
with Metro Vancouver Housing
with Metro Vancouver Housing,
for affordable
Bo-
rental housing.
affordable rental housing on Bowen Island.
Yeah.
Everyone understand that?
Yes, I guess that makes it more clear, although I thought the second part we've just added was actually implicit in the fact that if we're going to have these discussions, this is all involved. But if if you want to dot I's and cross T's, I guess it's probably the latter two sentences.
Yeah, just kind of throwing it
I
back
think
the way it was
I think it's
presented.
superfluous, but hey,
Yeah.
if you feel it leaves no room for misinterpretation, fine. Let's go ahead and do it.
I'm happy to second that if it hasn't been seconded yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll third it.
Did it get moved?
I moved it.
Allison. moved
Okay,
it.
thanks, Allison. Okay, we have a move in a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, that's a good move. Thank you, everybody.
Excellent.
And we're going to move on to 10.1, which is the minutes of the Eagle Tree, and this is reports of committees, cow and commissions. Minutes of the Eagle Tree Water.
Eagle Cliff,
Huh?
Eagle Cliff, not Eagle Tree.
Oh, sorry. Did I say Eagle Tree?
Yeah. This
Cliff
is their
Water
neighbors.
Okay,
System.
we can just let our mayor speak. Thank you.
Minutes of the Eagle Cliff Water System Local Advisory Committee meeting held September 1st, 2021. And I guess Liam, who's going to take a lead on that? I would have thought there might be Patrick, but there's 3 recommendations there.
You want me to do it, Liam, as the council liaison for the water committee?
Yes, please. Thank you, Councillor Morris.
That'd be great. Thanks.
I think you all know we didn't get the grant for the Eagle Cliff connection to Cove Bay, but that doesn't mean we don't need to deal with their water issues, and they do have money in their reserve fund. I think their minutes of their meeting were attached to the agenda, and the
Right.
resolutions that are on our agenda sheet are directly from the committee request. And so the first one is that council directs staff to proceed with the detailed design phase of the Eagle Cliff Cove Bay Connected Water Systems project for an estimated cost of $80,000 to be funded from the Eagle Cliff Water System Reserve Fund. So I'll move that motion, and that's in support of that motion. That's really, they've got to go, they want to be ready if there's a shovel-ready project, grant application that comes along or anything like that. And they really need to know what all the costs are going to be before they can, so they want to be ready to go if an opportunity comes up. And
Okay.
they've got the money to pay for that in their reserve fund.
Where did the $80,000 number come from?
In their reserve fund.
Where did the number come from?
Oh, that was the
It's the cost estimate for the detailed.
rough estimate.
Oh, it was. Okay, great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah.
Patrick had done some detail.
Okay,
Okay. So I moved that.
second. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everybody. Okay, Allison, go ahead.
So the next one, of course, is they've got to look at financing options. Sheila will agree with that. And find out if there's any other grant opportunities, and then keep the community informed on the project and try and gauge community support if they end up having to fund it themselves. So the recommendation is that council directs staff to take the following additional next steps regarding the Eagle Cliff Cove Bay Connected Water Systems project. Develop and evaluate financing options, continue to research and investigate grant opportunities, and continue to provide the community with information on the project and gauge community support for a possible self-funding option. So I'll move that.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Michael's had a hand up or a second?
Yes.
Okay. Maureen?
You're muted.
Everybody's off the air, yeah, okay.
I wonder if there needs to be some sort of, and reports back to council by such and such in this resolution. Because I'm imagining a
timeline.
resident of Eagle Cliff reading this and thinking this could spin, for a long time without really knowing what the financing options, et cetera, might be. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I
a
can
tough one to
understand.
put a timeline on.
I know it's tough, but you can report back and say, you don't know
We're
the
not
answer.
quite done yet.
Or you can report back and say, here's what we know, but having a report back date, I think would
Yes.
give people some comfort.
Okay, I see Liam struggling here. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. The province did just announce that program we kind of got a sneak peek preview from the UBCM convention. They just announced it as being open and closes at the end of January. And so we will certainly be coming back to council before then for approval to apply. And at that point, we will have done further work. So might I suggest that we would have, if we were going to put a date for having this work completed, that we would say by the end of January, because we should be back to you before then with seeking approval for an application to that funding program.
Okay, well, that sounds good.
So should I add before the end of January 2022 to that resolution, or do we take it as given that will be coming back?
No, I think put it in there if you want.
Well, it was Maureen's suggestion, so
Yeah.
is Liam's
Maureen?
comment good enough, or should I add it to the resolution?
Add it to the resolution, please.
Okay, and report back to council by the end of January, by mid-January 2022.
Sure.
Well, that gives us a few days before the grant application. Okay, so I moved that, and Michael, you're okay with that? for your second?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah,
Perfect.
I am.
Further discussion? Okay, I'll ask a question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Good, thank you.
And the third
Sue Ellen,
one
do you have a
is,
question? Hold on a sec, Sue Ellen.
Oh, I just wanted to say it was good to read in the minutes that these motions were all, or these recommendations were all unanimous on part of the Eagle Cliff
yeah.
Water Committee, and so that was great to read, and I'm glad to be making these motions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
they're
Back to
they're
you.
very prepared, do their homework committee, so they should be.
Oh, that's
congratulated
awesome.
for their processes. The last recommendation is to sort of maybe deal with some short-term options if some of these things turn out to be really long-term. That council directs staff to look into short-term options for the continued operation of the Eagle Cliff water system that will meet the water requirements of the community until Eagle Cliff connects to the Cove Bay water system. I'll move that.
I will happily second that one.
Any further discussion? Yeah. No, I see nothing. Okay, I'll ask a question. All in favor? Aye. All right. Well, thank you. That's that should get that on its way anyway.
Yeah.
Down to new business, CAO update. Liam, over to you.
Thanks, Mayor. I only have one brief update to share with you this evening, but I think you've also heard, I think you've heard, because I believe I did provide an email.
Yeah.
Just confirming that the court hearing for judicial review of the temporary use permit approved for the cidery on Laura Road has been bumped to October 22nd due to the fact that there was no judge available on October the 5th when we were previously scheduled and waiting for it to be heard. So I just wanted to bring that up here for the public record.
Oh, that's not too bad, because you thought it might be December before you got back in there. That's good.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. Thank you, Liam. Move on to update to council on Metro Vancouver business. Metro Vancouver Director David Hockey. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Gary. And I've had 2 meetings in the last week. One electoral area A committee meeting and another the Indigenous Relations Committee meeting. The electoral area A, one of the really interesting bits was a quite wonderful presentation by Fiona Beattie on the Howe Sound Akatsa Marine Reference Guide. And she walked people through it, and everybody was incredibly impressed with all the layers and all the things you could do with that. So that was really a great presentation. The presentations were really about the preliminary steps of looking at the Metro Vancouver budget. These are both tiny budget areas, so not of great significance, although but interesting, the Indigenous Relations budget is going up from 600,000 to 1.4 million. And the reason for that is the emphasis, the additional emphasis on reconciliation and the steps that need to be taken, working various ideas to work with First Nations for greater consultation and greater involvement in understanding Metro Vancouver opportunities and projects. So quite a lot of additional work there. But the electoral area A budget, just tiny, staying basically the same. There was a presentation, a draft presentation of the overall Metro Vancouver budget, so you get a sense of how these ones, the little ones, fit in. And they've done, the budget was looking, because of the big, massive infrastructure projects, particularly in water and wastewater, they were looking very big, but they're managing to keep it to 3.5, well, the draft, 3.5% increase for next year by pushing things off a little bit, delaying things. But one of the big parts about that is demand side management, particularly on water, putting off the need for the massive expansion in the Coquitlam water system. And basically by reducing watering to 1 day a week instead of 2, and also looking at wet weather billing so that they were able to, and this would be on the liquid waste side, inflow and infiltration, they could actually start charging for that and encourage municipalities to work on that issue, rather than water seeps into the sewage system and overwhelms the system during heavy rain events. Now, that's not really an issue for us, although we do have a sewage system that does have some of those problems. But you're going to hear about the big costs in Metro Vancouver, and that's that 3.5% number, but pushing things off, so it'll go up a little bit later on. What that means for the GVRD, the tiny part that we have, it's probably about the same, but we'll have to see. I'll report more on that. There's a budget workshop middle of next week, I think it is. Yeah, that's it from me. Thanks, Gary.
All right, thank you, David. Move on to an update in Council of the Island Trust business. Island Trust Municipal Trustees Fast and Kale.
Go ahead, Michael. I think it's your turn.
Yeah, I actually have nothing to add since our last council meeting. So I can hand it over to Councillor Fast.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
I was last week I spent on Vancouver Island, because Islands Trust is going back to in-person meetings mostly, because they don't have one single municipal hall in each of these islands. So there is nowhere for the public to go unless you have a meeting. So I was at Islands Trust Conservancy in Victoria, and that was a very positive meeting. We accepted 2 more conservation covenants on different islands, and renewed management plans for several more, and talked about how, brought on a new board member, Risa Smith, from who's been working at the international level, actually with IUCN, UNESCO kind of thing. So I was also at executive committee. So there we went over Trust Council and all the different things that happened there and how to move forward with that. business and also plans for the COVID in-person meeting reopenings, and passed several bylaws, Galliano, Gabriola, and Denman. Housing agreement on Denman for their housing project, which was interesting. And then I was at Hornby Island on Friday. So that was interesting to be in an in-person meeting again, struggling with technology when we're trying to upgrade to have hybrid meetings, just so people know. So we've got new camera and with microphones in it and speakers in it and all this kind of thing, but not quite, we're not able yet to get to the full integration of Zoom and in person, but we're working towards that, so I can let people know if you're interested in how that's working and what the equipment is. I wanted to show you for those kinds of meetings, I've got myself a carbon dioxide monitor just as an indicator for air quality. The amount of carbon dioxide in the air can tell you a little bit about how much it's been breathed already by other people, depending on the space. And I've got Gambier Local Trust Committee on Thursday. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Simone. And we'll move on to update to council on Metro Vancouver Regional Parks Committee meetings. Councillor Nicholson. Maureen, go ahead.
Thank you. We have our formal meeting tomorrow for Metro Parks, and what's on the agenda is what David mentioned already. The various committees of Metro Parks are being introduced to the overall budget and asked to provide commentary on the budget allocation, budget plan for their specific area. I'll say a bit more about that in a moment. We had an informal meeting last week on the 6th of October. We being the members of the Heritage Commission, Jeff Fitzpatrick, Lydia, who was forgive me, I don't remember her last name. She's a newish planner on the Davies Orchard project, and some members of municipal staff. So we provided, this was a meeting that we had requested, and Metro provided the opportunity. We provided feedback on the parking plan for the site design in the orchard, on the community garden, a bit more feedback on the cottages, specifically concern expressed by the Heritage Commission members on the planned demolition of Cottage 14, and some of the plans for pathways through the area, and we'll see where that goes. Sort of in ongoing touch with Jeff Fitzpatrick. With the larger picture, again, to just remind you, the visitation growth to Metro Parks has roughly been an increase of 4% per year, and during the pandemic it was 38%. So massive increases, and I mean we experienced that here, obviously. The Crippen and Dorman planning project is in the manager's report and in the budget and plan for 2022. Overall, the capital budget in 2022 for parks is 15.7 million, of which 1.5 is flagged for Bowen, so 10% allocated to Bowen. For the Orchard project, $1 million in 2022, and 500K for what's being called the Dorman Access and Amenities project. And I haven't seen any details on what exactly is planned for Dorman, but it's supposed to come together in at least at the planning stages in this last quarter. What else is important? There is an equivalent amount to the capital budget. There's 15.75 million for park acquisitions in 2022, and that's not specified for any particular parks. There's almost 20 million allocated for Greenways development, and that has been allocated to specific sites. So Metro Park continues to expand, and I'll keep you posted on how that relates to Bowen Island and some of the larger projects.
Great, thanks, Maureen. Yeah, I happened to run into Tom Parks guy, what's his name? McComb, yeah. And he was saying he's meeting with some of the guys, and he thinks they've sort of figured out a trail that they can actually get around to Dormant Point. And he said, we got to be able to get down there so it's going to be kind of probably like a quad trail or something, 6 feet wide, so they can actually motorize down there. So they're moving ahead on it anyway.
Yeah, yeah, they've got end of the year as deadline for planning, so we shall see.
Yeah.
Gary, could I just ask a question of Maureen?
Sure.
Yeah, Maureen, I saw a little bit about that Greenway funding, and I didn't quite understand it. So, I mean, I guess I understood that the Greenway would be up to other people to fund. They would just be, but it's kind of interesting that Metro Vancouver are actually throwing money into the Greenway, into some specific Greenways. Is that correct? Am I understanding it correctly?
You're understanding it correctly. The process by which the decision-making is taking place is unclear to me, as to which Greenways are being funded.
Okay, interesting. I want some. Anyway, okay. Okay, thanks, Maureen.
Well, Liam, did you have your hand up there?
Just following on that, yeah, because the explanation that I've been given is that it's not regional ownership of the Greenway, that it's municipal ownership, and that it's not, and they're not funding it.
Well, there's a lot of money in this budget if they're not funding it. So there's some lack of clarity around this whole area. And I mean, I think they're genuinely finding their feet. And the Greenways that are identified as being funded in the coming year are sort of projects that have been in the works for a considerable amount of time, and they serve large urban areas. So they're probably ticking the boxes on finishing projects that they've been trying to finish for some time, and then there'll be an opening at some point in the future. But I have to say it's a little odd looking at the numbers, and it's one of the questions I'll have tomorrow during the Parks meeting, is to know how are these priorities being determined.
Yeah, good point.
They're charging us for ours. They're making us pay for a chunk of their land. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thanks for that heads up, Marie. The next one is the update to council on Translink Mayor's Council meetings.
We haven't met, but you will have seen Translink 2050, T2050 all over the news today, because the phase 3 consultation was launched today. If you all would have received an invitation to 3 different council sessions they're offering for local elected officials. So there's one on Saturday and there's 2 others. I don't know if one of them's, yeah. So anyhow, sign up for that. And the documents there on their website now, and everything's been posted. And then the plan will be to get all the consultation, look at it, make final amendments, and then be adopted in the early spring is the timeline. And I think that was all I wanted to say. In just going back to the regional greenways, there is some documents in 2050 for transportation to get to some of the parks and things like that, and recognizing that access, which hasn't been there before. But I have recollections going back to when they were talking about the trail all the way down the Fraser to sort of get from the valley out to UBC. There's probably some private land that has to be acquired to be able to build the trail. So that may or may not be the budget item in some of these things, where they've got to actually acquire some land for some of these trails. Yeah.
All right. Is that it, Allison?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. So 11.6 is to move to a closed meeting. The recommendation is that council move to a closed meeting immediately following the regular council meeting to discuss items pursuant to section 91 Delta Golf and D, G, and I of the community charter. I'll move that. I got a second from Sue Ellen, and all in favor? Aye. All right.